Thomas, welcome to the hot seat. Interesting solo developer. I mean, think about it. I think one of the biggest development studios in Europe, CD Projekt, has over 1,500 members. Most of the big development studios have hundreds of employees, and you're making games on your own.
Yeah. Well, mostly. You can't be purely on your own. But yeah, I do most of the art, programming, or all of the art and programming, considering the core game.
What's the process of doing things on your own?
You wake up, you have an idea, and you go make it. It's literally, the practical process is just doing it. It's just sitting down, making the game, and exploring what it can be. It's a sort of a, it's 1,000 little steps. I think that's the most important thing is that it's just small steps combined, and you have the discipline to do it for quite a long time, and then in the end you can do great things.
How do you make it, like, you've got like a number of things to do, right? You've got all the art to do, you've got your programming, you've got your features. I want to make this feature. How do you gauge? Is it going to be 2 months' time? Is it going to be, if something is 6 months' time, are you going to make it, or are you going to just forget about it? How do you invest your time in?
So there's a sort of a high-level idea I want to get out, something I imagined, or a bit of gameplay I have a visual for, but it's not super detailed. So I don't do any design documents. I don't do a lot of I do a lot of thinking about it, and then suddenly it's not a fully formed idea. So my process is very much, and this is why I never work creative studios, about exploring what the game can be. It's sort of like a very fluid way of developing, where you're making something and then you have a good idea and you go, oh shit, if I could only spend a week on this, I can see if it's interesting. In a big studio, you can never do that, because everything is mapped out. You have your sprints, your Jira.
Because you come from bigger studios, right?
From a bigger studio, yes. And but this is what I like to do. This is what keeps me motivated. It's for me, the game that comes out at the end is a string of accidental discoveries which I found interesting to do. So it is a very artistic, way of working. I like, it's you think about something, but you don't have a concrete idea, and then you start shaping and peeling away all the layers until something interesting reveals, or not, and then you throw it away. But most often something interesting, and then you have to look and analyze. So there's an intuitive phase, and then there's an intellectual. How can this be useful? How can I use this in a game? And sometimes it's not, and then you park it, and it comes back a year later or in a different game. So for me, it's a very exploratory way of making games, and I think that's fully possible now because the tools are simpler and the things you can do are greater, but it's a different approach from most studios.
The thing is that I guess with solo development or when you're on your own, you've got constraints, right? There are some things that you will never be able to do, right?
Yes, there are.
How do you work towards these, and how do you sort of adapt?
So I used to do a lot of work for hire, and then you have to sort of be very good at what you promise you can do, because then if you're not on time, you're in trouble, or you don't get paid, and you want to, survive. So part of it's just the skill of gauging what you can do is a skill, and it's a skill you gain through experience. You look at something and you think, okay, this design is a lot of work, and then you might want this. You look at other games, you get inspiration, and you think there are entire sections. So people have which you can't touch as a solo dev. Huge interfaces with lots of buttons and lots of testing, because then you need to check if everything's working. It becomes a cumulative load. So you can't do that. So you always have to look for the most efficient, effective way. So I call it just moving sideways. When you see something which you cannot design, or which will be a mountain later on, you move around it. So you design around it. And this is when people play my games, they sometimes don't like it, because I find all these different solutions to the same problems. And for me, that's enjoyable. It's okay, I can't make a really big, good shop interface, or like a giant inventory interface, because you can make it, but then you have to test it, and every update you do, every content change, you have to test this giant interface if all the buttons are working. So that becomes a no-go area. So how then the design question changes. How can I make this story beat or this sensation I want to transform, but not do this giant design like it's done before?
Do you have any sort of instance where you sort of started doing something and then you realized I can't do this? Is it?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time, but there's big ones like multiplayer. I know it's become such a cascading waterfall of things you have to get right that it becomes I know some solo devs do multiplayer, but that's a specialization. On the whole, there's not a thing I can do. There's just ways I cannot do. So I can say, well, I want to make a city builder that's organic and it's a free open world within 20 square kilometers. I can do that. I can design that. The tech is there. I can think around the streaming data issues by being more effective. But for instance, I can't make it procedural, or I can't fill it with lots of side content. Because that's what people say. You can make it look like a great AAA. Well, you can, some indies and solo just make it look like a AAA game. You can't fill it.
Okay.
You have to write there's a limit to the amount what you can do. So you have to either condense it, make it smaller, or find a way to make mechanics that keep on being interesting. And this is where strategy mechanics and stuff are excellent choices, because they keep the player engaged while not having to have another cutscene or another bit of production value. So
how do you keep your kind of motivation going? Because when you have a goal set by someone else or a client or a target, it's so you've got to set your own targets, you've got to do your own meetings, you've got to sort of it's hard, right?
I find this much less hard than being in the studio, because there's no meetings, when you run a business, the responsibility I felt was crushing. Responsibility for people's jobs, for their incomes, their mortgages, for your clients' happiness, for larger commercial. I found that stressing. Being by myself, I'm only responsible for myself and I'm for my family. So if I fuck up, I get to be angry at me, which is fine. It's a very short meeting. He's like, Thomas, no, you fucked up. Okay, make something better. So it's in a sense, it's less stressful. You need a lot of discipline. So I think that's the first thing. You need a lot of discipline. You need quite a lot of experience, I think, to build up discipline and to know where where the mistakes are going to happen, where the pitfalls are. So I think those are prerequisites. How do you stay motivated? I have to, because I am I call a chaotically creative aligned individual. So I lose interest relatively quickly. If I start doing repetitive or I already done something else. So I need to always be looking for something that stimulates, where I go, this is something I want to make. And then I can hyper-focus and be in there for a week or something. And so for me, that's the system I've developed, where I allow myself, this meandering river of exploration. We go, and I can lose myself. And then I have the discipline to, once I'm done or I've achieved some sort of level, I always force myself to polish everything so that it looks good, so that it's usable. And then I start thinking, how can I use this? And that's literally, when I did the Falconeer, I love boats as well. It's an ocean world. I want to have sailing boats. And then I am a fetishist. I want the sails, because I know how to sail. I want the sails to have proper orientation to the wind and that they tack properly. So they do the tech art for it. I make the sails, I make the shaders, and it's a happy time making all of that. And then I made a boat that I could turn around and it could go anywhere, and it looked correct. With the sails well tack, it was simplified but looked good, and that was excited. Then I wanted to make 100 ships, but first I had to look at, okay, Thomas, now we're going to have to add ships to the game design. How in the hell are you going to do that? And I think that's the discipline part, where you go, okay, these parts are useful, these parts aren't useful.
Because to make things even worse, you are not making the same game type again, right? You
no,
from that's genre.
I'd always try to be smart, but I always end up flying off somewhere, literally. So the first game was a classic retro air combat game in the style of Crimson Skies. I do work in the same universe, so I get to recycle. I think that's, people don't say that, recycle your technology, recycle your toolkit, recycle your artwork. I upsample everything, so or not upsample, but you know, the first ships were fairly simple, and I just a month ago I spent like a week just making all the rigging, the side rigging, anchors, and so adding whole new level of detail for a remaster. So it's nice to fiddle with things, but yeah, it's a lot of chaos, but I enjoy that.
That's cool. The thing is that you have to sort of deal with some level of expectation towards what you do, right? So first of all, you know, you set yourself to I want a 2 years development time. Is that something you do?
Yeah, I do. Well, my bank account does that for me.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
The money runs out. I wish this is the dream, that you can just sit at the creative pace, but a bit of pepper up the ass where you have a deadline is important. So I do generally make my deadline. Sometimes that's not super beneficial, but I find that after 3 years, I'm also sort of saturated myself with a game, and I just want it out the door, and I want people to play it, and I call it just pissing over it, have their opinions, hate it, love it, and then I need to take a small break, and then I can come back and start working on it again. So it needs to meet the rubber needs to hit the road. So I find 2 years is 2-3 years is a good time span, and then because then your internal motivation is gone. You've emptied the vat, and the only thing that can then sustain you is is your community, is the players. They can come in, good or bad, and say, okay, I love this, but this. And that is another struggle in itself, where you have to learn to listen, and which is really hard when you spend 2 or 3 years by yourself on this personal exploration, and people say, this is shit. So there are cases where I've just finished, like 4 months ago, a new way of selecting stuff, because I made this fancy 3D selection mode, and people weren't gauging the distance, and it wasn't like other games, and people kept complaining. And then internally go, no, I don't want to change that, I don't want to change that, I don't want to change that. And at some point go, okay, I'm gonna try it, and they're all right. All of them were right. It had to be different, and then you change it.
Big buzzword in the industry now is validation, right? Validation.
Yeah, validate.
Do you validate stuff, or?
Partially. So I am the king of saying to other. Well, I'm not the king, but I am a great proponent of saying, if you're just starting out, validate, because there's lots of indies and small devs, and they start making a game, and they don't validate, or they wait too long. So in the small scale, you don't see if anybody has an appetite for your game. If you don't have an appetite, if you're not sharing early, you're also not getting that motivation to continue. It becomes very hard, and that what happens as a creative person, you start to look inwards. It will be better if I have more art. It will be better when the voice acting comes in. It will be better when I add the levels. And you start to close yourself up from what's actually happening with your game, and it's just 1 more year or 1 more month. And so that's a super dangerous situation. And the other situation is where studios are more or less in the same situation, and then the ambition becomes too big, because it's easier to add. If we add multiplayer, then you don't have to deal with the fact that you're not having enough wish list, and you should actually take the loss and stop. So I think yes. So validation is great. It's great, especially for indies, because you have only so many times. The age, I call it. We need to kill the age of game jams, where we come up with a new idea every week and we see what sticks. And that is not working in the market. You really have long-term strategies of the types of games you build on tool sets and be efficient. But the other side of that is that if you over-validate, you can't be original. Because then if you ask any gamer what they want, they will always want what they already love. This is a hallmark of a fan, is that I love a certain game, I have great memories of a certain game, might not be realistic to the reality 10 years ago or 5 years, but you have these expectations. So people their job isn't to design games, some of them is, but most people, they want to have more of those happy experiences. So when you listen to them, you're just going to make more of what exists. So that is the opposite of validation, that and I often say you can do 2 things in today's market. You can be the best, or you can be the first. Okay. And it's a lot easier to be the first. because then you don't have to be the best. If you say, I'm going to make another roguelike card battler, you're gonna have to be the best roguelike card battler. Otherwise, you're not gonna be, because you're fighting against a history of that genre. Whereas if you're the first, you can be innovative and make something crazy, and people will come and go, I have no expectations. I didn't know this genre existed. I don't know this game existed. And you can stumble. And after you, people will come and make better versions of that game, but you already staked your claim. And I think that's the easier way to go. So cultivating in your studio or in yourself a method, and I do that by creative exploration and meandering, but a creative method that you can be innovative and that you're not stuck on, this is how that game do it. Because you see here, when you go on Blue Sky or God forbid Twitter, and here, or Reddit, and hear people say, how do you pick your art style? How do you pick, how to make a inventory? The first thing, even out of art school or game design school, is, well, you look at all the other games that made a great inventory, and then you copy the best one, which is a solid strategy. But if everybody does that, you're going to only make the same.
Yeah. And in terms of being a sole developer, it's interesting that it's something that you seem to master, but because you've been doing it for some time. Is it something for everyone? Is it something that everyone can tackle, do you think? Do you need a special character, a special set of skills?
No, I think it's something, there's been a romanticized image of solo dev, in that if you go on r/game dev, everybody, I'm a solo dev, I just started. So solo dev is becoming a byword for, I'm starting out, I don't have a team. So I am alone. And I think for me that's fine. I'm not in charge of what things are called. But for me, being alone and being successful is something that's more valuable at the end of your career, where you have this, built-up experience, you know what works, and you have this built-up frustration, and you have this sort of backlog of ideas that you can do. And being alone is a lot less problematic, because you have your family, you have your kids. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of famous, Roald Dahl used to sit in his garden house and write in a comfy chair. And he had a big life outside of it. So I think, but when you're young, I think I used to work in teams when I was young, and I think you learn so much more from other people. There is a limit to what you can learn by yourself, because you have your fixed, your barriers and your tunnel vision, and you don't have anybody pushing against you, showing you other ways how things can be done. If you start working in a team when you're young, everybody has new ideas, and your ideas get better, your skills get better, and you go up the experience ladder just so much faster. So I always say, I really write this so often, solo dev, it's an end station, it's not a beginning, and it's not even the best end station, because it's quite lonely, and it's great for people who have, acronyms and neurodiverse. When you can be alone, it's fantastic, and when you've solved those issues. But if you're alone because you find no other means to create, there's no other option, that's not good. And when you still have so much to learn, it's not the best environment to learn in, because you're also going to reinforce all your mistakes again and again and again. You might get lucky, but I think it's the hardest path to take.
Do you think that, how do you deal with the idea of, I guess because you're building a world where a lot of, you're building a sort of a coherent world, and you've got a long-term plan. Did you start off with this plan of creating, I'm going to create this world, and then I'm going to build games around these?
No, I think I learned that. I think
okay.
But you stumble and learning is failing. So I tried to make an RTS game about the afterlife. Wow, a decade ago, and it was really dark and it wasn't fun. So from the bones of that, I reused some art. I made the Falconeer, and suddenly there was some bit of magic there. Where, okay, this is more interesting. This is more uplifting, of course, because I'm a fairly bleak person, so I had to make all kinds of bleak world around it. But Flying Away, that first game was very dark and literally bleak. It didn't have a good ending. It didn't have a good story. Everything was about depressed, really. And the Falconeer is still that, but you fly away into the sky. Everybody has this dream of escaping and flying away, but it has this dark ocean world where the Bulwark, it's the same world where all the mysteries and secrets are, which is a fantastic story metaphor. And I saw it, I thought, okay, this has something, you can make a game that's only cool for you, and you can be acceptable art. I mean, you can be an artist with a big A and put it in a museum. But you want people to play it, they have to be able to identify and sort of get into it. And this escaping from your present situation on the back of a giant bird, I think it was a much more universal, appealing concept. And I could tag onto that all kinds of other concepts. So I had something, okay, this is here. And then when it became a success and found its audience, I think those are maybe two different things in how you define it, but finding your audience is a great success. I realized, okay, it was because I was burned out. It's a special piece of art. I realized, okay, this is not only for me, it's the best thing I ever made in a sense. I can't ever recreate the authenticity like your first album. Eh?
Yeah.
But also I analyzed what people thought. Okay, so it was a 90s style retro flyer. Okay, there's a reason that genre died out. So there's not a huge demand for it. So maybe the gameplay itself, but the world, everybody loved this world. They connected with this this metaphor of the ocean, the sky, people riding giant birds. Okay, so this world is valuable. I'll take that along and work on it, which also has practical benefits about being reused and then improved tools. Those ships became much more important in Bulwark, and thus you can grow it out. And I thought, well, I'll make a city builder because when I need to relax, I'll make tiny villages for the Falconeer. So maybe other people would like to make tiny villages for the Falconeer, and that's how Bulwark became a thing, and that became slightly more strategical and stuff. But it is, you have to luck into whatever you have to see when you have something, and I think that's a mistake I've also seen with my own studios. At some point you have a success, and then you think the success is you and not the product, and you think you can repeat it because you're the same, but actually the game was the success.
Talking about this, which is one of my kind of key questions there is, what do you think about this whole narration of solo dev and the idea of, hey, you can make it, it's possible, it's great, because you are one of the flagship.
I think it's a nice story, and now I go and I'm pretty sour on being that flagship. I've tried to bring realism to the discussions. So I think I like it for people that are artists, or that it's a journey. And it takes a lot of perseverance, and you had a lot of luck, and it used to be easier, but it's still, people make that journey because that's what artists do. So I'm all 100%. But the argument that's now being brought, we need to, the industry is sort of collapsing because games are too expensive, and need to, Jeff Keighley goes, oh, it's solo dev here, solo dev, this is the future. If everybody becomes an indie dev, I have a couple of messages for AA and AAA studios. Yeah, we're going to be as efficient and small as. We're already here, we're already doing, we're probably better at making small, and it's hella hard. It's hella busy. So if that's what the game industry is going to do, and it's going to make cheaper games, then in general there'll be more games. It's just economics. And when there's more games, there's more competition. What's the differentiate? What's your unique selling points going to be? That you can make games as efficiently as some guy who has to make weird choices and weird design choices because he can't do the things you can do, who can't lean into convention because the conventions are hard to make. That's not a survival strategy. The survival strategy is money. We can't go cheaper than we're already going. We can go mobile, but that's not sustainable. Then the other one is production values. Then it's going to be the game with the best actors, and you're already seeing that with the celebrity status of voice acting and physical mocap actors. So that's going to be where we spend money. So then still spending money is what's going to differentiate the different layers, or you're going to spend it in marketing. I think production isn't even the largest cost or going to be the largest cost in the future. It's always going to be marketing and eyeballs. In a super saturated market, the cost of, if you look at the music industry or even YouTube as a good example, it's not the cost of production. It's the cost of getting eyeballs, of becoming the biggest. And so I think if I'm really harsh, this is a lot of people who entered the industry and have no idea what they're talking about, now waking up to the fact that they're making no money and they're desperately looking for ways. How can we make this a business like any other? You can't. This is a hyper expensive, hyper specialized entertainment fire and how do you call it? A deadly series where you fail more than you succeed style of business. So they can try, but I don't think they'll survive because they're going cheap.
Yeah, the thing about the narration behind it is that you're I think one of the first that got that. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but you got that PR hook, Tomas Sala is on his own and he's doing. Do you think you've sold more copies because of that, or?
I think so. I'm very torn on that. It's great for So I believe that developers, and there's all this backlash about auteurs, but in the end, on YouTube you follow a creator, you follow a channel, and not the individual videos. So I think we're going there, where people will follow individual game studios, publishers, who align with their values and repeatedly, game after game, release games that are valuable to them, or in the majority valuable, and people will follow you, and that is the survival path. And you can grow from a small audience to a big one, instead of this hit cycle.
We're not very good at taking care of our creators in the industry, right? We only have Kojima, maybe, who's the flagship name. But there's no real,
I think most games are team efforts. I am an exception, and anyone that goes out, I want to play this Thomas guy game, it's going to be hella weird. It's going to make unconventional choices, because I don't have 15 people making a bloody inventory for you. So it's going to be a new. I'm going to remove all the interfaces, because it's also not fun to make. So if you like games that are picking new ways and a new flavor of things, but perhaps not the best ways that are the most intuitive, so that isn't a guiding light for the entire industry. That's just crazy. One guy did it. Ultimately help me. Yeah, people know me, but it's also because I like to swear a lot and I have opinions. I don't know. In the end, I think I like to play a lot of high quality games like Kingdom Come Deliverance, with very high production values that have emotive scripts where you can feel lots of people. There was a historian there checking if all the shoes were historical. I like that type of game. I don't make that type of game. So I think that the majority of gamers actually naturally would like the most high quality game, and they don't give a shit about how many people work on it. They might like a vision behind it, but they don't care if it's one by or team. But if you're by yourself, it was frustrating. So this summer I took a holiday and I am here, and I was at games. So I had 2-3 months where I wasn't productive. And then you see the community is asking for more than I can deliver. If I had a team, I'd have something working on updates and social media. If I take off, then everything goes whee. It pauses. Yeah. So I don't think it's the way they're. I can do harsh thing, but I think the way they're touting solo dev and micro teams, it's a poverty of the big systems not working. And the reason the big game studios aren't working, or the big publishers, has nothing to do with production. It has to do with the type of games they put out, how they're not listening to the market, and the way they want to make money. And the way they want to make it isn't always super attractive. It's like, the enshittification of the internet, which we all see, that is the enshittification of our industry, and somebody's got to pay the price. But the solution is not. We keep on enshittifying our games and doing more dark pattern monetization, but we're like Tomas Sala or like any other great micro team. I don't know. So it's a different cause.
Thomas, before I send you home, being more productive for your community, I have 5 quick questions to make. So get ready. Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What do you love about the video games industry?
I love creative people, passionate people.
Tell us one idea you threw away but you wish you would have done.
It was a game where it was that failed game, and you had an RTS, and you would steal units, souls in the afterlife, and you would traumatize them by making them stronger and more wild and more lost in their trauma. And if you played the game, the meta game was, but if you didn't do that, they became weaker and weaker, and the weakest form was a little cute sheep. And you could actually, the real goal was to win the game is to rescue all these small, beautiful sheep who just had no trauma. I'm still got to make that game one day.
Go home and make that game. Best RTS you ever played?
Company of Heroes 1, no doubt.
What do you hate about the video games industry?
Money, man. Suits. No, not suits, but yeah, money, man.
How many copies of your next game are you going to sell to retire?
I don't think I can ever. I hope to never retire. I don't know how many. If I go down that rabbit hole, I'll go crazy.
Right. Thank you very much. Cheers, Thomas.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.